What about you?
That was my one question about the cost on the scopes, and that's pretty reasonable, actually.
You know, you can get a marvelous scope for about 12 to 15. And I have the first scope I ever bought, and they're modular, so you can just kind of build up on them as your experience grows. But just I got a little. My working scopes are Pecos, and then I have a Pro Ergo for teaching because I can zoom and do shit that I probably don't normally really need to do. But the Pecos are about as big as 2 fists. And I have them ceiling mounted, they're like an overhead light, so you just, you know how we lean the patient back and you just reach up and fumble around and there's the handle and you pull the light out. You want your scope that ergonomically available. If you get them on wheels, they're never where you want them, and after 3 months, you never use them. So you just ceiling mount, pull it right down. Every general dentist in this room should get a scope. Now, why are you laughing, sir? Do I need to give you money?
He's going to give you $100, you're going to buy one tomorrow.
Well, if I vote for you and give you a little investment, you got to follow through.
You know,
because you're the MB2
I live in
guy.
the real world, okay?
You're in the real world?
I'm in the real world.
Oh,
so
we're not. You scopers down there, you're not in the real world.
They're not.
Why aren't they?
Okay, I'm a general dentist. Had to re-equip my office for my daughter to come in, who does implant stuff like this. Put in an E4D, a CAD-CAM system, which I like far better than the Syriac. Have to have all this other stuff, so I'm going to spend $15,000 on a scope. It ain't going to happen. I mean, I'd love to have one, but it's just not going to happen because it's just the
you know, it's kind of like priorities. I hear these things. Okay, I've been teaching for a long time. I gave my first lectures in '77, and I started giving courses on microscopy in Santa Barbara, and I was.
I just had a wedding too. Excuse me. I just had a wedding too. Excuse me.
Okay, well, you had to write a big check. So my point is that after about 2 years, I was doing exit studies to find out how many people that took my course ended up buying a scope. And so one at a time, guys. So anyway, nobody bought a scope. So I told Phyllis, I have to make them more money. That's the problem. They don't see the value. So you don't see the value. You'll go buy all kinds of stuff that costs 10, 15, and 20 grand, and you think you have to have it. But you know what? What is the most important thing to a dentist?
Patience.
No, I just heard it.
Vision.
If you can't see it, you can't do it. And there's an old expression, you only know what you see and you only see what you know. So everything in your office, from an amalgam to packing cord, these aren't stunts for endodontists. Like a lot of times a general dentist thinks, oh, that's an endodontic tool. We have more general dentists buying scopes these days than endodontists. And general dentists get it, that when you go home at night and you're tired, right? Why are you tired? Because you had to hear all those stories all day long, right? You had to listen. So you have to, these are takers a lot of times, and you have to, they want you to take their problem. The next thing is you strain all day to see. If you get a scope, there's a learning curve, but dentists can take the scopes rapidly because we're used to working in the mouth mirror. And the mouth mirror is fine focus. And all of a sudden, if I could make a pulp chamber as big as my fist, don't tell me you wouldn't find more MB2s. But you're talking yourself out of finding MB2s because you don't want to make an investment of 12 grand, but you'll probably leave in your Mercedes tonight. And you'll write another check for the divorce after that wedding, right?
It's a Maserati.
No, you know, you got to think about what's important. And you know, I'm not going to sit here and tell you need a scope, because you'll need a scope when you want a scope. But I'm telling you, if the endodontist would agree with me, if you got a scope in 1 year, after 1 year you would say, I can't go in and practice without my scope. So I noticed dentists buying sandblasters and all this stuff, and it's important. But at some point, the most important thing is to see things well, because you can do great dentistry if you got good vision.
You can see all the
Keep in mind, Ted, you're in your 50s. And when you get a little old, you're in your 60s? Are you really? When you get a little older, vision is going to get worse. So the microscope is really going to help you there.
What magnification you look
I'm usually working at 6. You know, all these guys that run around and tell you they're working like up here in the sky, that's bullshit. You know how, you know, the patients just go, you're going in and out of focus constantly. It'll drive you crazy. So if you wear 2 5s, 3 5s?
3 5s.
Okay, we'll start with 3 5 on your scope. But what you'll notice is you're not doing this. See, there's all kinds of benefits. Like, I sit straight, I have lumbar support, I have armrest on my chair. I go home with more energy, I can play with my grandkids because I didn't do gymnastics and strain all day to see. So I work at 6, but I started off at lower power. And then John will go up and look at maybe 16 to look around, but he'll probably drop back down to do his next little deal. So work at a really comfortable power. And you sit straight, your arms are, got support, your neck, you got that knife in the back at the end of the day, because you've been like this all day, get your arms down. Think about scopes. So they tell me I have 1 minute, or one question.
So, did you say?
I don't take questions from him.
Optics, was that
Oh,
the,
optics.
was that the scope for 15,000?
No, Optronics
Optronics.
was the camera company.
Okay.
I
so
would
what,
think-
what scope for 12,000 are you recommending?
Okay.
I want an
had-
answer now.
You'll get an answer immediately. I got my first scope in '88,
Okay.
it was called the Jena. That was an East German scope. And then the Germany's united. So then I left Jena and I went with Global. And I had Global from 1999 to, from 1989 to 1999. So for 10 years roughly, about 11 years I had Global. And every time I came home from lecturing overseas, I always had whined to Phyllis in the plane, God, I could see so much better than at home. And she'd say, well, what'd you use? And I said, well, we had a Zeiss. So finally she said, quit whining, bring out the Zeiss scope, they'll come out, and just look at your Global and your Zeiss, look at your pictures on the monitor, head to head, look through the oculars, head to head, and make a decision. So I ended up changing in 2000 to Zeiss, and I've been with them since. So I have a lot of affection for Global, but I left them because their technology isn't on par with Zeiss. Here's the great news. In the old days, Global could always say they were cheaper. They could always beat it by 3 to 5 grand. Today, there's no difference in the introductory scopes between Global and Zeiss. They're all about 12 to 15. If you compare feature for feature. So inclinables, gotta have them. You never use a scope that has a fixed ocular, you'll dump it immediately. So you need to be able to move your chair up and down, patient can come up and down, and then their scope with your inclinables. So they're about 12 to 15, and you'll have it dying of old age. And then you can put a camera on it later or put it on right away. But it's a great scope. I don't care what you get, I want you to hear scope tonight. It's not so important which one, it's important that it's the concept. And this guy, which I like, you know what? General dentists come to my class all the time and go buy a scope when they leave. They don't buy Pro Taper or something else, they get a scope because they use scopes in my workshop. We don't even market it. You don't even think you're coming to get a scope, but you get a scope at your station. And when you work on a scope for a day and a half, they never go back. The first hour I see them, they're like this. They're stiff and they're rigid. You see them like about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, they're doing this. They're just working like they've been working. So you're young. I mean, you're not an old dentist. And I've had guys in their 70s get scopes because it gets them back in the game. If you can see, you're in the game.